بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين رحمة للعالمين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله روحي وأرواح العالمين لك الفداء يا غريب يا مظلوم يا شهيد بأرض كربلاء ثم السلام عليكم يا أهل الأزهار الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في كتاب الحكيم وهو أصدق الصادقين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لقد كان في قصصهم عبرة لأولي الألباب ما كان حديثا يفترى ولكن تصديق الذي بين يديه وتفصيل كل شيء وهدى ورحمة للقوم يؤمنون صلوات الله. One of the striking feature of all religions has been, from my limited knowledge of all world religions, the guidance of humanity. But the guidance takes into consideration the culture in which religion is introduced. To understand the culture is an important element of the prophetic mission. The prophet is well aware of the culture of the people. In fact, according to the Quran, the prophet is chosen among them. So if there was an Indian prophet for the Indian audience, then there was a Persian prophet for the Persian audience. But what is, I think, amazing is the universality of the way the Quran approaches the prophetic missions. When I look at the Quran, this is what I find to be very striking feature of the Hidayah, because it does say, وَتَفْصِيلَ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَهُدًى وَرَحْمَةً لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. If you are willing to believe, then the Quran will guide you. If you don't believe, the Quran leaves you alone. You and your own ways of doing things. There are so many people who are by name Muslims, culturally Muslims. They don't read the Quran. They don't know the Quran, what the Quran says. And I think that it is correct to assume that they are left on their own. You find your way. Because there is another dimension in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning His mercy over all human beings. فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ. The Quran is coming, this ayah is coming and saying that please pay attention. Aqim wajhaka means put your face towards that. In English, we would say orient yourself toward that. Orientation means to try to understand the totality of human needs, because we human beings are a totality. According to Imam Ali, we are made up of different elements, and they all come together in us. And in Farsi, they say Jahan Akbar. is the human being. This is Jahan Asghar. This universe is small. You, human being, you are much larger than this. What it means is that it's for you to explore the universality. Why do you need universality? Why do you need universal values, universal system? Because you are universal yourself. Human beings are not created in isolation. The first relation they have is going to be to the land where they are born. And there's a natural attraction towards that. This is what we call natural nationalism. Then comes the language, then comes the culture, then comes the ways in which that culture is developing in you different ways of approaching your religion. It's not enough to know your creed, what you believe in. The important thing is not only to know, but to apply that belief system in your life. And this is why history has to remain open, not closed. History tends to deal with the subject and says, this is all. So you are a student, and you are studying history in the university. Also, you have different periods covered by your courses throughout your stay in that university. First 2 years, general courses, but then the next 2 years, you are doing the specific courses in history. And the history is treated as a closed book. Because historicity comes to a conclusion at a certain moment. In 1776, American history began with the approval of the Constitution. So 3rd July, Americans saw the Constitution. Before that, they were fighting with one another. All these, different French and the Italians and the English, they were all against each other. But then there came this sense of, urgency. We need something to guide us. Constitution. Constitution came and people started organizing themselves around the obligations created by the Constitution. The Constitution said, you're all born equal. You're all free. And so many things that the Constitution speaks about. And we know now that it was racist Constitution from the very beginning. Because when they say, we, the people of America, it meant minus blacks, minus others, minus Jews, by the way. For a long time, Jews could not even, come to the very recognition of their citizenship. They were not allowed to vote. They were not allowed to hold any public office. North Carolina, South Carolina, they were all very particularly anti-Semitic. This history was closed. I want to talk about the closure of the history. If you're going to do that with the religion, then the religion stops at a particular century. The Prophet died in the year 622 CE. And thereafter, we have the history of the prophethood came to an end because the Prophet was Khatam al-Anbiya. It was the seal of the prophets. His mission had been accomplished. It started with Adam and it came right to Muhammad. And they were all connected to the same message. We can claim very clearly, the followers of Quran, that history continued and remained open. And it did not come to a close with the death of the Prophet ﷺ. Rather, it opened a second venue of leadership. Why a need for a leadership? Because isn't that something that has divided Muslims? We all are saying that, if the Prophet, was very clear about what he wanted after him, then there would have been no fight in the Ummah. That's not true, though. All historical documents are telling us that he did make the provisions very clearly. In the last 10 years in Medina, the Prophet prepared the community that I'm not going to live forever. You better realize that. And therefore, I'm preparing. I'm saying, who is more worthy of that leadership than I am going to be? Because I am the teacher and I have the right to decide who comes after me as a teacher. So there was a logical framework to it. But it was more than logical. It was an engagement with the personality. If you say that the mission has been accomplished, then what you expect is, after 23 years of the prophetic mission, all the Sharia, everything else was, ready for the Muslims to adopt as their constitution. That's not true. If that were the case, they would have seen very smooth transition of power. We did not. As soon as the Prophet closed his eyes, there were people who were ambitious to take the reins of the government in their hands and to become leaders. Whether people wanted them or not, they did come out strongly saying that anybody who opposes it will force them to pay allegiance. It was very clear. When Imam Ali said, I'm not going to pay allegiance, it was, they were forcing him. They came to the house of Fatima al-Zahra, Salamullah alayha. And the door of the house was broken on Fatima al-Zahra. And there was the beginning of what we call a new section of the history that had not come to a closure. That history continued, and then we see Imam Ali finally as a fourth caliph, and then we see Imam Hassan for 6 months, and then we see Imam Hussain alayhi salam. All of this is the line of the Imams. If there was no need for that, then the Prophet ﷺ would not have introduced the idea that there has to be continuity in the guidance of humanity. Human beings need constantly to be guided. One of the things that we read in the instance of history, the way it evolved with the history of Karbala. Imam Hussain, the day he leaves Medina is 28th of Rajab. He arrives in Makkah on 3rd of Shaban. All these days traveling, 3rd of Shaban, he is in Makkah. And he is in Makkah until 8th of Zulhijjah. So there is Shaban, Ramadan, Shawwal, Zulqa'dah, Dhul-Hajj, 8th of Zulhijjah, he lives. When he was about to leave Makkah, by the way, on 8th of Zulhijjah, Ibn Abbas comes to see him. Ibn Abbas was the cousin and one of the major students of Quran. Imam Ali had trained him. So here you find that Ibn Abbas comes and says, why are you leaving? Why are you going? People are coming in for the Hajj, and you are leaving the Hajj. I want you to understand a very important issue for Imam Hussain. Am I going to stay here and finish my Hajj, the rituals, when Islam itself is in danger? Islam was in danger at that point. They wanted to stop the family of the Prophet from assuming the leadership that was going to save the community in its religious and civil affairs. There was a division in the power, so to speak. The civil authority of the Prophet was assumed by the caliphs. The Khalifa were political leaders of the community. I don't care what they did later on and how they interpreted that period, but that period, according to what they understood was they were simply managing the affairs of the community when the Prophet was not there. Part of the reason was that they were going to disobey the Prophet's commandment. They were not going to allow that thing to happen. There were a lot of ambitions going on. Imam Sin alayhi salam is heir to that problem that started on the day the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam died. The day he died, the first issue, if it was today, many Muslims are telling me that no, leadership was not issue, the Sunnah was issue. I say, okay, the Sunnah is part of the tradition. We all need the Sunnah. We will all need the Sunnah until the day of judgment. That's fine. But what was needed was someone who could show with example that this is how the community is going to be. And one of the most important examples was, Inni ja'iluka linnasi imama. When Ibrahim was given a promise by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is telling Ibrahim, we will make you an imam over the people. An imam by definition means one who stands in the front and you follow that imam. That's the meaning of imam. Khalifa comes after you, but imam stands in front of you and says, now obey me. Now see what I'm doing and you do the same thing. When the people are deprived of the imam, then they are left in the darkness. There's nowhere for them to find the path. And as I say quite clearly, that one of the things that Imam Hussein is more worried about is the question of imamah. The people in Kufa had written to Imam Hussein, we don't have an imam. There were 12,000 letters that Imam Hussein brought with him in the bags. That when Hur said, we have not written, we have not invited you, Imam Hussein said, open the bag and show them the letters. And most of the letters were saying, some of them were read loud, that we are in need of an imam. Now we need to be very careful here that what do they mean by imam? What did they mean by imam? We want an imam. In what sense were they talking about it? In a very sense that the Quran was talking about it. The Quran did not divide the Prophet's authority between civil and moral. Rather, there was one authority of the Prophet ﷺ. It was both religious and secular together. It was both spiritual leader and the temporal leader. Otherwise, you would not have been able to manage the community. What you need as a leader is engagement with the community. How can you engage in the community when you set yourself separate, saying that, I'm your leader only in the matters of religion and not in the matters of your worldly affairs? No, I'm here, I'm going to tell you how are you going to manage it. So when you look at the Sharia itself, the Sharia is a system of the values that the Prophet taught the community, saying that this is the system you need and which will take you to the day of judgment. It's not something very small. You will be able to live with the Sharia until the day of judgment. He was so confident about the جَعَلْنَاكَ عَلَى شَرِيعَةٍ فَاتَّبِعْهَا. O Muhammad, we have appointed you on the Sharia, on the path. Just follow it. In other words, Allah is saying that we have given you a system of values. You will apply them and you will use them in your lifetime and you will prepare the next one to come as your wasi. See what the plan was. That's where the Visaya comes. Wasiya is an important part that here Imam Ali is going to take over. And this is not what the Prophet meant was that I am standing as a complete example for you. And I also want the one who succeed me to stand as a complete example for you. Today, we have, religious leader, we have secular leader, we have religious leader, we have administrative leaders. In all communities, we have that. But there could be a time when religious leader and secular leader are all in one person. That was the vision that the Quran was establishing. The Quran says, "Ja'alnaka ala shari'atin fattabi'ha." You follow the Sharia. That means this Sharia is going to remain absolutely binding on you. I'm not talking about fiqh. I'm talking about the Sharia. I'm talking about the divine law. I'm talking about the divine system that deals with ibadat and muamalat. It is dealing with your relationship to God. It is also controlling your relationship between individuals. Because one of the things that Islam always wanted to be in the forefront was the idea of justice. There can be no community without justice. The moment you sacrifice justice, the community begins to decline. There's no more the ability to hold the community together. The community comes together when they know that I'm working for justice. I'm doing something that is required by religion. The Prophet ﷺ was following the Quran very carefully because he was Mu'allim al-Quran. He was Amilan bil-Quran. He was not only teaching the Quran, he was practicing the Quran. I will go this far to tell you that while the Prophet ﷺ was living, the Quran and the Prophet were one and the same. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. You and I see the Quran as a book separate, and we can open it and read it. For the Muslims in the 23 years that the Prophet was the Prophet, they looked at the Prophet and said, this is the Quran. When the commandment came about Aqimus Salat, they said, well, there is no system of Salat given in the Quran, by the way. The Quran doesn't describe how to pray. It simply says you must pray. What the Quran did was, he made the community dependent upon the example of the Quran, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The reason was very simple. Imagine today, after 23 years of the Prophet's life, Muslims have not found the same way to do the Salah. Did you notice that? Some leave their hands open, some close their hands, some say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim when they recite Fatiha, others are not reciting it. They say, no, we recite in our heart, we don't say it loud because it's not part of the Quran. Hey, how can you say it's not part of the Quran? When it is in the Quran. When Fatiha begins and the first verse is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. How can you say that? How can you believe in such a thing? Aren't you then propounding alteration of the Quran after the Prophet's death? It's dangerous. That means you are saying this word was never part of the surah, then we don't have to recite it. That's not what Imam Shafi'i says. That's not what Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says. They said, no, you have to read Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim to complete your recitation. Imagine if 23 years the Prophet prayed in front of the community. 23 years, I'm here in between you, praying for 23 years. At the end of my journey, you say, we don't know how Abdul Aziz prayed. With straight hands or cross hands. We don't. Hey, you are seeing the Prophet, and Hassan and Hussein are seeing the Prophet. Ali and Fatima are seeing the Prophet. When Ali is not folding his hand, how would you fold your hands? That's what Imam Shafi'i's argument is. And now, this is very small. This is very small. Can a daughter inherit from the father? Very interesting question. I live in a state and I have boys and I have girls as my children. My boys receive double the share of my girls. Although they need more money, but I can't give her because she is half of what my boy, inherits. You think that the Prophet ﷺ just made those rules without considering the possible circumstances when it could also be said that the girl should receive double what the boy receives? There could be time. There could be. There were times, the faqih, our scholars were confronted with sometimes parents who would come and say, I have 3 daughters and I have 6 sons, big families. And I have this estate, but all my girls are poor. They are married to the people, to the persons who are not very well to do. What should I do? Should I leave all my money to my sons? And the fuqaha would say, no, be just and fair to your daughters. See what they need. Make them bequest. You don't have to write the wasiyah for that. Give them while you are still alive. That look, I have these daughters, I need to give them more because they need more. If you leave it for the will, last will, then it will follow the rules that are already implanted in the Quran. You see, there are rules in the Quran. I don't want you to imagine that the Quran did not deal with such an important matter. It was well dealt with, but there was this idea in the tribal society. In the tribal society, the girl, when she married, she went to live with her tribe. So if there was a piece of land given to the children, then when the girl left, she would have taken that piece of land or the value of it with her, which was sometimes impossible to do. With the boys, one piece of land. There is farming, done on it. How can you divide such a piece? In other words, there were ways of handling what the jurisprudence did. And I don't deny that. The best way Islamic jurisprudence used the term ijtihad. Ijtihad was necessary where there was a need to see that justice is to be done. You can't live that without that. In other words, the Prophet ﷺ is being told that we are giving you the values of the Sharia. You adhere to the values. The value of the Sharia is in the importance of the family. You cannot hurt the family. Men and women and children are the locus of the family. They are the nucleus of the family. Don't try to harm it. If you harm it, then you will regret for having this, disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what the Quran really did was that it gave the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam authority to see that what the culture and what the circumstances demanded, you should accordingly adjust what the Quran was saying. If that was not possible, he did not read the book the way you and I are reading the book. We can open the section of talaq, or we can read the section of the inheritance and say, this is what it says. No, the Prophet was living. And he did everything in front of the eyes of the community. The community, some of them were very bright, like Ibn Abbas, Ali ibn Abi Talib. They were writing down in their minds and also in their notes. We have notes about the Quran that are traced back to Fatima al-Zahra and Ali ibn Abi Talib. Salawat ala Muhammad wa alayhi. That means they wrote their notes, Hashia Navisi, as they say, you're writing, in the margins. What they wrote in the margin was the explanation. What Fatima Salamullah wrote, what Ali ibn Abi Talib wrote, they were all learning the Quran and they were reading the Quran and noting down what they heard from the Prophet. In other words, their teacher was the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And that was so important. What I am suggesting is that when Imam Sin is about to leave Makkah, the greatest danger for Imams, the way Imam Sin saw it was that if anything goes wrong in the house of God here, it's going to be used for the future wrongdoing of these rulers. They would have done it. Already 26 people were sent, and Imam Sin knew about it, that they are going to kill him while he's doing the tawaf. And Imam said, no, I will not let them do that. That's not the right thing to happen in the house of God. Look at the way Imam Sin is building the narrative that you and I are interested in. What we are seeing Imam Sin doing is that he is weighing pros and cons of the situation. He is not blindly following one thing. He's not saying, well, I must perform my rituals. How can I live on the 8th of Zulhijjah? He could have done. I would have done. If we were there, we said, oh, no, I'm not going to live without Hajj, without performing that. Imam is saying that performance of the Hajj sometimes is secondary than preservation of the principles. This is the big major step taken by Imam Sin. In other words, what Imam Sin is teaching also to be Zainab Salamullah alayha. Zainab is a woman. And yet Imam Sin is empowering Zainab Salamullah alayha to look Zainab. There will be many occasions where you will have to take the leadership. Because Sajjad is not well. Sajjad might not be able to perform the duties of Imamah for a while. But Imam Sin is empowering Zainab Salamullah that you are going to be the leader of this small, group of the people that I'm living with you. You are not only their commander, but you are the one who will make the decisions as they come across. Without that, Bibi Zainab would have been helpless. Don't you think? If Bibi Zainab was going to stop, that I need to go and ask the Imam, because Imam Zainab, the first night after the Shahadat of Imam Sin, on the 11th night, by the way, history is telling us, Riwayat is telling us, that Zainab came to Sajjad, Imam Sajjad, and said, Sajjad, wake up. It is the time we have to make a decision. They have taken our rida, they have taken our chador. We don't have anything on our head. And they are coming and they are burning all the tents. This is the last tent that is here now. What should we do? Shall we go out without our head cover, or should we get burned in this? Imagine Imam Zainul Abidin is performing his duties of Imam, and the first is the crisis. Don't you think? It's a very difficult decision. How am I going to make the decision? Imam Zainul Abidin is looking at his aunt and says, Aunt, we have to go out because we have a bigger mission to perform, and we can't allow ourselves to be burned. We can't be killed. We have to remain there. Look at the way the philosophy is working out. This is what I call narrative ethics. All these days I've been telling you, if you do not regard Karbala to be an event, then you cannot go back to it to understand what the event is teaching you and me. Because you and I need to follow the instructions given by Imam Sin. Imam Sin is giving instructions from 2nd of Muharram until 10th of Muharram. After the 10th of Muharram, the decisions will be made by Imam Zainul Abidin. But where he is not well, Zainab Salam Alayha is going to get the decisions. See what has happened? It's unimaginable. Imam Sin had a vision. He had a vision, and that's the vision that he was trying to tell all. When all in the journey that he did, wherever he found opportunity, he gave a khutbah. Can you imagine how daring was the Imam? Shuja, very brave, said no. And he did not even ask for permission. As soon as the salat was finished, he would stand up and give the khutbah. Leaving to the people, you want to listen, listen. You don't want to listen, I have something to say, I will tell them. That requires a lot of moral courage, by the way. You can't do that. And you find Zainab Salam Alayha doing the same thing. She is a prisoner in the court of Yazid, and she dares to speak. She challenges Ibn Ziyad in Kufa. Yazid in Sham. She was not afraid. Imagine how we envisage, the women in the old days, the traditional women who had nothing to say. We never asked them anything. That was how our mothers were brought up. In many cases, they had no strength to stand for what they believed to be the right things. But Imam Sin, in his vision of leadership, is so clearly that it makes no difference, men or women. They have to be knowledgeable. They have to know how they should guide. And Zainab was alima, ghayr mu'allima. She was known to be a teacher without having a teacher. She used to be, even during Imam Ali's time, she was there in Kufa, living with her father. And, Jafar bin Abi Talib, they will come, Abdullah bin Abi Talib would come and, would visit and go, because he was a trader. He would go to Damascus, he would go to Cairo, and then come back to Kufa. But Bibi Zainab was there, and she was the source of information for women of Kufa. She guided them. She told them what was happening. And not only that, it was that kind of empowerment of Zainab Salamullah alayha, which helped to preserve the narrative of Karbala. My brothers and sisters, had it not been for Zainab Salamullah alayha, we would not have known what happened in Karbala. Because their plan was to do something and cover it up. If this happens, just kill them and get rid of them, What did Saddam Hussein do? Mass graves of the people, of the soldiers, of the Shia. I know in Iraq what happened. The Arab world was quiet. They never objected to what happened. But we knew after Iraq was delivered, Iraq was freed from Saddam, we knew how many mass graves were to be found around Baghdad, around Najaf, around Karbala. Who were these people? They were all the Shia being killed. And the whole world was quiet. There was no sense of right and wrong. If there was a sense of right and wrong, then Imam Sin had already taught us, you can't keep quiet when the wrongs happen. For me, Shahada is more important than living as a wretched human being. See what Imam Sin is saying? I cannot live like a wretched human being. I will not do that. He's not saying it, but I'm telling you, all the speeches that I read, all the speeches in Karbala, especially, he says, Ana ibn Fatima, bint Nabi. I'm the son of Fatima, the daughter of your prophet. I have looked time and again, if he would say, Ana ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. No. Ana ibn bint Nabi. I'm the son of the daughter of the prophet. In other words, he's connecting himself with his mother. And this is the mother who has brought him up, has fed him, has nursed him. And today this man is standing because of Fatimatul Zahra's spiritual statement. I'm talking about spiritual statement. Fatima was incredible in spirituality. She was the one that the Prophet looked at in order to understand the pulse of the woman. How would a woman see it? How would a woman react to it? And the testing was Fatimatul Zahra, the mother of Hassan and Hussein. Imagine the mother of Zainab and Kulthum. Imagine this woman with that kind of spirituality. Because I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, spirituality is what gives you the moral strength. When you become spiritual, you will be morally brave. You will be able to tell someone that I don't believe what you believe in, Because what you are doing is injustice. How many times are you able to open your mouth when injustice is there? I'm sorry to say, we don't. Injustice happen. Oh no. Oh, it's nothing to do with me, you know. I'm supposed to keep quiet and supposed to keep, peace in the community and this and that. My friend, injustice is occurring. If you don't stop it, the culture of religion will die. I'm making a big claim here. The culture of religion will die. What will happen to religion? Religion will become thirsty of the stench of the leadership when injustices were done. Don't you think that Zainab Salam Alaiha or Fatima Sughra, Fatima Kubra was also in Damascus. These women, they gave speeches. They are recorded. And they spoke out. They were trying to, insult them. In one scene that I'm just hesitant to talk about it, but they used to bring the head of Imam Sin in a tray. And the tray used to be kept in front of Yazid. And Yazid used to play with the lips of Imam Sin with the, small knife. Imagine Zainab is looking at Imam Sin's head. Sukaina is looking at her father's head. What do they go through? What are they suffering at that moment? Can you imagine even for a minute? Extreme cruelty. Extreme cruelty. Even the Prophet in his battles had a moral code that whenever the battle was fought, women and children should be spared. Old people should be spared. They should not be touched. No fruit trees should be cut. That was the Prophet's. When they were working on the laws of just war in Geneva in the 40s and 50s, they had not invited Muslims to go and speak to these scholars of international relations and international law. But later on, they were made aware what the Prophet had taught about the code of behavior of the soldiers, combatant, non-combatant, distinctions, and how he separated the two. That you cannot touch the non-combatant. You can't touch women and children, no. But here you see all the rules and all the regulations that were morally all upheld by the Prophet were all, stamped in. You think Imam Hussein would be able to stand that without taking a position? And therefore, I'm coming to the Ashura night when we gave his speech. One of the most memorable speech of Imam Hussein is the khutbah is on the Ashura night. It was already, the prayer time had finished. And they were all gathered in the tent, by the way. The khayma, all of them had gathered there. Outside only, there were no walls at that time. There were only tents. And all the companions, everyone was there. Imam Zain al-Abidin himself is giving the narrative. He is the one who is witnessing this. I saw لما كانت ليلة العاشر من المحرم جمع الحسين أصحابه عند قرب المساء. When it was getting dark, he gathered all of them. قال علي بن الحسين عليه السلام دنوت منه. I moved closer to him. I wanted to hear because Imam Zain, as you remember, had a lot of fever. He was suffering from diarrhea. It was not at all able to move. ما يقول له أنا ذاك مريض. I was sick at that time. فسمعت أبي يقول لأصحابي. Now he's talking to his companions. My father was talking to him, and he started off with Hamd Sana of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the first thing he says is that I am so grateful to Allah that all my companions are the most faithful companions. I haven't seen more faithful companions for the Prophet or my father, Ali ibn Abi Talib, but my companions are like that. And then he goes on and says, you know, I have never seen my Ahl Bayt so connected with me than anything that resembles that before this occasion. In other words, both the groups, Ashab wa Awlad al-Hussein, all are related to them. It makes it clear. So I'm going to tell you something, that this enemy wants me. They want to kill me. They will not be satisfied until they kill me. They don't have anything to do with you. You Ashab, the sons of Aqil, the sons of this, sons of that, please go at night. As I turn off the light, you go in the darkness and go back to your homes. One thing that Imam Hussein is teaching us is the loneliness of Imam Hussein. You reach a point in your life when you become extremely lonely. And you talk to your family members, saying that, I do feel lonely, but you have to leave me. I can't let you be with me because they will kill you. They only want me. So this is what Imam Hussein is pleading. He said, leave me and you go at night, like the camel that travels in the dark. You go and make the night your camel and go away. Because they want just to kill me. Imam Hussein is standing in front of the family members and the Ashab, all of them are there. And then he turns off the light. He felt that maybe they will be ashamed to leave me. They don't want me to see them leaving him. So he turned off the light. The candle was burning. He turned it off. There was no movement. Some didn't move. Some of the companions went away. But Muslim bin Awzah just stood up among the Ashab. He said, how can we leave you? We are with you. We were with your grandfather, with your father. How can we leave you? Each one is getting up and giving you speech. And the family, Abbas stands up. Abul Fazl says, and don't want to go through the actual text, but this is the gist of what he says. What is the fun of living without you? How can we be without, when you are adoring someone, when you love someone, well, how can I live without you? You are telling me to go and to leave you. I can't leave you. And even if they kill me 70 times and they bring me back to life, I will not leave you. Abbas. Imam Hussein is listening to these speeches. Very heartening speeches, by the way. Very heartening speeches. Each piece is part of the narrative ethics that I'm searching for. They're teaching us how to handle the critical crisis in our lives. What do we do? How do we manage those crises when they happen in our life? Should we give up? Should we be, abandoning our hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And Imam Sin is the one who says, Oh Allah, you are my friend in my loneliness. Ashkuleka qurbati. I complain to you my loneliness, Ya Allah. I'm lonely, but you are the one on whom I depend. When you reach that stage, by the way, in your life, there is nothing for you left, and you are saying that now the time has come for me to go also. But Imam Sin doesn't do that. Said they want to fight with me, I'll fight them. But they have nothing to do with you. Why don't you go away? Take the hands of these women and go away at night. Nobody will know. He knew how the honor was important for them. He said, no, don't worry about it. And while he was standing there, by the way, he saw someone, touching his feet, his legs. He raised that boy. And he saw Qasim ibn Hassan. This was Qasim, Imam Hassan's son. And he was, clasping his hands around Imam's feet. Ya Ammi, tell me what is going to happen to me. Will I be able to sacrifice my life for you? This is 13-year-old boy, 14-year-old. He is the only one who is not baligh in Karbala. The only one who is underage, as we would say, is not able to, say that I'll make a decision on my own. I'm already a man. I can do that. No, he knew that he had no such right to do, and therefore he attached himself to Imam Sin. Imam Sin had already told everyone that tomorrow everyone will be killed. They will not leave anger. They will also kill my son Ali Asghar, the small baby. And Qasim was upset. And he said, uncle, tell me, how will they kill Ali Asghar? He's a small baby, he can't even walk. Imam says, I will take him in my hand, and he will be killed by the enemy. Qasim is crying and saying, Mawla, I want the permission to go. Will you give me the permission? You know why he's worried? Because he's underage. And Imam would have said, no, you don't have to go. No, you don't. You don't have to go. I don't want to give you permission because you're underage. Ashura came, and this young boy, Qasim, he had long hair, apparently. And he, was coming to Imam Sin from morning until noontime. The time came and all the ashab were killed. It was a time for the family members to go. Then say Ali Akbar was the first one to go. I don't know. Whoever it was, I have seen Qasim preparing himself to go. And Qasim came several times to Imam Sin, let me go. And Imam Sin said, no, not you. You know how the uncles, how the fathers, no, not you. No, you go. And Qasim was worried. He came to his mother, Farwa. Mother, last night he told me I will be able to go, and today he's not giving me permission. What should I do? Mother said, you have a tawiz, you have a hairs that is tied to your, hand. Give it to him. This was something your father had tied. And he comes with the hairs, with this amulet, and he shows to Imam Sin, my father had tied it on me. And today is the time that I need to see what you think about it. And Imam opened it, and it was talking about the day of Ashura, by the way. That Tawiz was speaking about the day of Ashura, that there will be, Qasim, there will be a day when I will not be there to go and, sacrifice my life for your uncle. You will go in my place. That was already indicated in the permission. And Imam Sin, when he saw that, said, okay, I'll let you go. Imam Sin is putting his hair together, ties the amama on his head, gives his own horse to him. He was small. He had to be, put together by Abbas and Imam Sin together. They were always. Imam Sin, by the way, on the Ashura day, was so strong and in shape, by the way, that he all the time, anybody who died in the battlefield, he carried himself, that person on the horse, and brought them near the tent. He was so strong. MashaAllah, it was something. And Imam, put him on the horse and Qasim went. I don't want to say a lot more, but you have heard it. That Qasim was attacked from all sides and he was killed. And when he fell down on the horse, he called his uncle, Assalamu alayka ya Anna. Oh, my uncle, my greetings to you. This was Qasim. This was Qasim who had called for help. And Imam Sin they say, Tabari is telling us, by the way, in the description of Imam Sin at that time, he said, he was like an eagle going toward the army, moving them, and so angry with them that Qasim was killed. What was about that boy that you killed that boy? And Imam Sin got there, but during that attack that Imam Sin had, inflicted on them, they ran across, and the body of Qasim was trampled by the horses. So by the time Imam gets to again, I'm citing Tabari, by the Tabari, the historian, Sunni historian, is telling us that at that point, Imam took the head of Qasim, and his head and Qasim's head were together, and his legs were dragging on the ground. And in other words, his body had become so much trampled that he had become torn. Imam brings Qasim back, and Farwa is waiting to see her son. Ya Allah, this is the most painful day for Imam Hussain alayhi salam, for Qasim to be killed in this way. And when Qasim's body was brought, Imam Hussain is talking to Qasim, I'm sorry I could not come on time. If only I had come on time and carried you back, this would not have been possible. Allah Qasim, Allah Hussain, Allah Hussain, Allah Hussain. It's the time that du'as are accepted. When Fatima al-Zahra says, Amin for our petitions, this is the time. أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُسْتَرَّ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُسْتَرَّ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُسْتَرَّ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُسْتَرَّ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. Ya Allah, بحق الحسين، Ya Allah, بحق أولاد الحسين، أصحاب الحسين، بحق أم الحسين، أبي الحسين، جد الحسين، Ya Allah, اغفر لنا وارحمنا وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. Ya Allah, wherever is ill, we're asking Shifa for the ill people, all around, Ya Allah. I make no distinction, Ya Allah, between Muslim and non-Muslim. Whoever is sick, Ya Allah, give them a cure, give them an ease, and heal them, Ya Allah. Being sick is not easy, Ya Allah. You know it, Ya Allah.